While we have two groups, Marco Wittmann will be doing the qualifying in the second group, and it's going to be very, very exciting. This racetrack is unforgiving. So let's get ready for the qualifying, and here are your commentators. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, thank you Verena very much. Welcome to this wonderful place, the Norisring. We absolutely love it, so do thousands of fans as well. And we're about to get into qualifying for Group A of DTM. Here come our track facts then. Let's tell you a bit more about this Norisring. 2.162 kilometers, 5 turns. DTM has been here since 1984, and in 2022, well, it was something of a car park at the Grundig turn then. As you can see, a safety car is always a high possibility here when it comes to the race. And of course, in 2021, who can forget Kelvin van der Linde crashing his title hopes that year? It is a place that always evokes extraordinary emotions, including me being able to voice the first Porsche victory in DTM back in 2022. I say back, it was merely 12 months ago. What a place it is, absolutely fantastic. There you can see with our poor cameraman up there, it's right up on a cherry picker there, taking a look at that Grundig turn as we go into the pit lane now, and also into the cars as well, to see our drivers getting ready for this qualifying. Thomas Preining, as you can see, is leading the drivers' points at the moment on 55 points, 4 ahead of Frank Pereira, who had a torrid time in one of the free practice sessions yesterday. I'll tell you more about that during the program. Ricardo Feller also on the same number of points, but he's P3 ahead of Maro Engel, of course, comes here with a rich vein of confidence because of success. And then Tim Heinemann from Sim to DTM, and Mirko Bortolotti is running P6 in the Drivers' Championship points at the moment. Lots of fans already making their way into this fantastic circuit here, which is just outside the city of Nuremberg, or should I say the city centre of Nuremberg. Hello, you're on the telly. Good morning. Hope you enjoy yourselves. And about to enjoy themselves out there are the drivers, including Maro Engel then. The Mercedes AMG team man filter then. The car looks absolutely awesome and sounds great as well. When it gets to stretch, it's well-proportioned legs on this Norisring circuit. We take a look at the number 8 Audi then of Luca Engstler. The Engstler name synonymous of German motorsport, of course, and Luca Engstler had something of a torrid time of it, if truth be told, during one of the free practice sessions yesterday. He and Frank Pereira having a little coming together. So the starting order for Group A for Q1, Lucas Stolz, Alessio Deletta, Ricardo Feller, Luca Engstler, Jack Aitken, Mick Viso, Lucas Auer, Mattia Drudi and Maro Engel and Lauren Heinrich. The reason we've split into 2 groups is because there are just so many cars, including Thomas Preining and Mirko Bortolotti, Frank Pereira and Christian Engelhardt as well. It is an eclectic mix of manufacturers and cars to play out on one of the most exciting stages that exists in motorsport. And Mirko Bortolotti is about to absolutely pummel his Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2. Say that when you've had a Diet Coke or two, around this Norisring circuit. Thomas Preining, he was looking very, very good during elements of the free practice sessions yesterday for Mante EMA. Thomas Preining, of course, in that privileged position in the points at the moment. Don't rule out Mr. Frank Pereira either. Has to be said that the track did not seem to suit the Lamborghinis yesterday. However, free practices are free practices. This is when it really counts because it is proper qualifying. Maro Engel then easing the Mercedes out of the garage into the pit lane, all of which, the entire infrastructure here at the Norisring has to be built for this one weekend of the year. And what a highlight in the calendar it is. Delighted to welcome alongside me Mr. Brian Oliver. He of very nearly royal family back in the UK. And here he is joining us with the DTM. Look how busy it is now, Brian. This is going to be awesome.
It is going to be awesome. The cars take to the track, a track that allows for no errors whatsoever. You get it. You need to get it inch perfect. You get it wrong, you are going to be into those very solid concrete walls which do not move. Cars have been split into 2 groups, as already mentioned. You may wonder where those groups have come from. Well, they combined times from free practice 1 and free practice 2 yesterday. We have a list of drivers. The driver that finished quickest, Thomas Preining, the man we're riding on board with there, with a 49.201, is in Group 1, as indeed is 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and so on down the timing sheets. They're all into Group 1. Group 2, which will be coming after this qualifying session, will be headed by Ayenchen Guven, who was the 2nd quickest driver with a 49.202 yesterday. Just a 1,000th of a second slower than Thomas Preining.
It's always close in the DTM, and that just proves the point, doesn't it? And thank you for explaining why we're into this situation with regards to the qualifying. Now, Thomas Preining, right now, you can hear him accelerate, then brake, accelerate, then brake. What he's trying to do here is use those brakes to generate temperature, for the temperature to dissipate out from the rims onto the tyres, to give himself real tyres that are in the optimum performance window, and he's continuing to do that, as you can see, as the teams look on, of course. And it's really, really important as everyone is standing by to go out there. It's short, sharp qualifying, and we love it for that because it just drives the entertainment value for us. And the free practices themselves, those free practice sessions were hugely entertaining, and we're expecting the qualifying to follow exactly the same thought. So through the Charleroi goes Maro Engel. Now, this is where the surface changes from tarmac to concrete paved area, and there's about 1% or 2% banking on that concrete paving, which when it comes to the race and also to the sharp end of qualifying, the drivers will use that to give themselves something of a slingshot onto that straight down towards the kind of second hairpin, if you will, which of course is the Dutzendijk turn. Luke Sauer then. Cometh the man into the pit lane. He goes right now, and we expect to see this with the drivers. Jack Aitken's certainly one of those as well, making a trip. They go out and do a kind of a sighting lap, really, and then dive back into the pit lane, making sure belts are absolutely as tight as they can possibly be. It almost takes the breath out of you as you really wind down on those straps to make sure. I mean, these cars are just so they're wonderful pieces of engineering as Jack Aitken brings it to a stop there. So expect the times to come towards the end of the session. Lucas Stoltz was another one who, for me, Brian, really impressed during free practice sessions yesterday. I mean, Luca is a renowned driver, and was certainly seemingly very, very quick during those free practice sessions yesterday. He's going to be one to keep an eye on in this qualifying group.
He is very much a championship contender here in the DTM. He had a torrid time at Oschersleben, 2 non-finishes, a change of chassis, a change of engine, and it all went terribly wrong. But he had a good time at Zandvoort the week after that, and he picked up an 11th and a 3rd place. We can see them taking the temperature of the track at the moment. That's very important, isn't it?
Oh, look, we can see that. They probably don't want us to see that. Well, well done to that cameraman. Give him an ice cream. It's nice to see. You're absolutely right. They're taking a recording of the temperature of the tarmac as well as we look at the number 99 car of Christian Engelhardt, his team radio.
But I don't think he is pitting. I think he is just building up heat now. He really doesn't want to give you a draft, that's for sure. But I think if he's gonna go, he will have to start soon. Okay, so we stay behind. If he doesn't pit this lap, we go. Absolutely. Okay, Manta is gonna pit. Okay, so we start with our normal build-up now. Manta is gonna pit. We stay out.
Interesting.
It's great to hear the strategy that is being employed by the interface between the teams and the drivers.
I would say I'm really interested to hear him talking about picking up a draft. I said yesterday in free practice that I didn't think the slipstream was worth anything on a track this short. Shows how much I know. So clearly, even on a track of this length, it means something. They were clearly talking about Thomas Preining. He is the pace setter at the moment. So that is the driver they're keeping an eye on, that number 91 yellow and green car. And he's the one they all want to beat because he leads the points championship.
But not by a huge margin.
Not by much at all. By just 4 points by my calculations.
Maro Engel then for the Mercedes-AMG team. Man Filter is standing by and just sitting inside the car now. you may think that the driver is sitting there just listening to his favorite Earth, Wind and Fire track. That isn't the case at all. Of course, the engineers are talking to them all the time, and they're feeding back to the engineers as well. And what a complicated car it is. You can look at all the switches and buttons and things. The most critical one here, particularly at the Norisring, is the brake bias. And basically what that does, that changes the force of the brakes from front to rear or rear to front, depending on how it suits and fits the track and the car particularly. Frank Pereira. Now, I mentioned briefly in the final free practice session yesterday, Luca Engsler tried to shortcut the Dutzendijk turn, got to the inside and rattled over the curbs, and in so doing rattled against the side of Frank Pereira, which meant that he couldn't complete that or finish that session. It came towards the end of the session nonetheless, but unfortunately his car had to be towed out, didn't it? And he was gesticulating with the recovery teams as they were pulling the car away. Obviously the teams have worked hard to get that car back out into pristine and perfect condition now, as we watch Christian Engelhardt then give it an absolute footful in the TalkSport WRT Porsche 911 GT3R. Christian Engelhardt, another name that has been associated at the very highest levels of motorsport for many, many years. If anyone can deliver, Christian Engelhardt can deliver when it counts, and we will see what he is able to do during qualifying. Of course, as you quite rightly identified from the radio traffic that we heard, he's not going to get the benefit of being able to try and get a tow off of the likes of Thomas Preining, because at the moment, dare I say this, Christian Engelhardt plus one other are the only cars out there, and I think it's De Ladder is the only other driver out there. So what they've got is the benefit of very little traffic on this short track, but of course, that's not going to stay that way for very long, because already we're down to the final 13 minutes of this qualifying. Alessio De Ladder then, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2 from the SSR Performance team, and what an awesome looking car it is as well. During the free practice sessions, I don't think we saw the best of it, and I think things are going to improve, and all of a sudden it begins to get a little bit busier as Maro Engel decides to join the early morning party here at Norisring as well. And Maro Engel we ride on board with now. I absolutely love this camera shot because it shows you just how close at times these drivers get to the very unforgiving concrete barriers. Here's Frank Pereira then, and Frank Pereira who is able to turn through that turn, which is not what he was able to do at the end of the free practice session yesterday. You can see there's a bit of a kink there, and they go and they target the car. They actually aim the car to that concrete barrier so they can shortcut that straight. Mattia Drudi, who is being motivated, of course, by his team boss, as all the drivers are, and they're out there for the final 12 minutes of this qualifying session, weaving from side to side, generating temperature into the tires, using the brakes as well. Let's run the clock right now on the Porsche driver Christian Engelhardt. Into the Grundig turn then. Get the power down as quickly as you can on the outside of the turn, and heading towards, for the first time of asking on this timed lap, the Scholler S is 19.439. You almost scrape the BWT banner on the in and on the out, and that is where you use that little banked 1-2% of banking to really project you down this, heading towards the Dutzendijk turn now. Heavy braking once again, and Christian Engelhardt then is going to give us a meaningful time, I would suggest, as he crosses the timing line and breaks the timing beam, which is where he is heading right now. And yesterday times into the low 49s. It's a 51.7 for Christian Engelhardt. Maro Engel is going to be the next to show. Here he is on the exit of Scholler S's now. Whoa, you're almost catch the inside of the car. You've got to know your car inside out and know exactly just how far you can push that car in terms of where you're using the track. Now, it's Engelhardt from Bortolotti from De Ladder at the moment. Then it's Engel, who we're watching right now. Christian Engelhardt has gone quickest in Sector 1. It's a purple sector as Engelhardt breaks the timing beam now and delivers a time for Christian Engelhardt of 51.719. Best time is with Maro Engel. It is a 51.668. Here comes Engelhardt now to complete this lap. The previous time was his previous lap, and he seems to have really found something because it's a 50.296. But Brian, it's not going to be many many rotations of this track before we see times into the 49s.
No, it isn't. You can see Engelhardt just building it and building it. Of course, tyre warmers not allowed in DTM, so first job getting heat into the tyres. The track temperature is 26.2 degrees centigrade, so the track is getting warmer. There's more rubber being laid down, so the track is going to get quicker. There's more heat being generated into the tyres. So Christian Engelhardt just building it up. I'd expect within the next lap or two for him to be into the 49s, if not before. Christian Engelhardt, you can see purple in sector 1, purple in sector 2. That means he's the quickest of anybody in the first two sectors. Is it going to be 3 purples in a row? I think it probably is, and it's a 49.961, the first driver into the 49s. Christian Engelhardt laying down a benchmark.
Indeed so. Well done, Christian Engelhardt, then. With 9.5 minutes of the session remaining, he has gone P1 with a 49.961. Now, at the moment, he is the only driver into the 49s. Don't expect that to stay that way for very long. Mirko Bortolotti then crosses the timing line now. He's 5th fastest in the Lamborghini. Then Christian Engelhardt improving still further. And you run this sequence and this decision that you make with regards to how fast you can go and where you bank a lap, and of course tyre longevity also plays a part in the team's thinking as well. But Christian Engelhardt, as you can see, is winding it up nicely and has found yet more pace and heads towards the beam now. Are we going to be into the 48s? Not quite, 49.577, but he took a full 3, very nearly 4 tenths out of his previous best time, and Mattia Drudi then is the next to show, and he goes 2nd fastest with a 50.560. Now, during the free practice sessions yesterday, Brian, the cumulative figures, we were seeing, like 26 cars within a second of each other. I mean, so close in DTM.
Insanely close, and I think we're going to see that again today. At the moment, Christian Engelhardt is some 3 tenths slower than the fastest time yesterday, but as already mentioned, everything is getting faster and faster. This is the first of the 2 qualifying sessions. What will probably be the outside row of the grid, because the track will probably be faster for Q2, which will come up in the second qualifying session, which will come up straight after this. The driver who is quickest in this session will line up on the front row with the remaining cars in the group behind him. And I would suggest that'll probably be on the outside, because the quickest time overall will be on pole position.
We'll see if your prediction comes true. I rather think that you are right, but it's Christian Engelhardt and Mirko Bortolotti from Jack Aitken. Good show from Jack Aitken as Mirko Bortolotti now goes quickest with a 49.538, 3/100ths quicker than Christian Engelhardt. But we did ride on board just for a moment with Thomas Preining. Lauren Heinrich looking pretty lively as well. Keep your eyes on him. Thomas Preining on something of a warm-up lap by dint of the fact that he's only gone P12. We expect more to come from Thomas Preining. It's Mirko Bortolotti with a 49.538. Christian Engelhardt, 49.577. We've only got 7 minutes left, and Lauren Heinrich goes to P3. Frank Pereira is P4. They're changing, and the times are changing. They are changing every single lap. And of course, you get so many laps here because it is such a short lap here at the Norisring. Lucas Stoltz right now, personal best sector 1, better than anyone sector 2. He is on something of a mission to move up from his current P8 position in qualifying. We'll see what Lucas Stoltz can do right now as he heads towards breaking that timing beam, the laser that sits across the track. And did I not predict that one coming? Lucas Stoltz with a 49.247, Brian.
Brilliant stuff, just 0.04 of a second slower than the quickest time of the week so far. So Lucas Stoltz really setting a benchmark. I'm keeping an eye on Jack Aitken. Had a tough day of it yesterday in free practice. That Ferrari not especially dialed in here at the Norisring. Currently still in the 50s. I would suggest that any driver that's not into the 49s is going to be nowhere this weekend. Thomas Preining, the man who has been so quick all day yesterday, now purple in sector 1, a personal best in sector 2. He's got a few more seconds left in this sector 3. We're riding on board with Thomas Preining. Here he comes out of the final corner onto the pit straight. Let's see what Thomas Preining can do. This could be a new provisional pole position. A 49.1. We're getting close to the 48s.
Thomas Preining then, 218.1 kilometers per hour. Here comes Frank Pereira then. His middle sector was a tad shabby in comparison to what he needs. It's a time of 49.366, P4 for Frank Pereira then. Thomas Preining then, as Brian called it, has gone P1. Lucas Stoltz P2. Christian Engelhardt, of course, one of the early runners in this qualifying session, is P3. Ahead of Pereira, Bortolotti, Engel. We've not seen the best of Lucas Auer yet, as Ricardo Feller very nearly embeds the car into the concrete barriers, but they are pinpoint accurate, and we expect to see more to come from Ricardo Feller and also Lucas Auer. You don't need to get every sector painted purple. You can get away with maybe just one being purple. Ricardo Feller at the moment needs to turn the final sector purple, and I don't think he's quite done it, but he has delivered a 49.413, which gives him P6 ahead of Maro Engel, who is P7 at the moment. Lauren Heinrich goes to P4, and we ride on board as requested by Brian Oliver with the Emil Fry Racing driver Jack Aitken then, whose Sector 1 was a personal best. Sector 2, which is interesting, was not green or purple, it remains grey. So we'll see what Jack Aitken can do when he closes out the lap, and he closes it P11 at the moment with a 49.916. Thomas Preining from Mirko Bortolotti, from Lucas Stoltz, from Lauren Heinrich. That's the way it looks as here comes Ricardo Feller, and again that middle sector hasn't worked for him. So I'm not expecting this to necessarily be an improvement from Ricardo Feller, and indeed it isn't. Lucas Auer now goes fourth fastest, and here comes Christian Engelhardt, who, as I said, was the pace setter fairly early on in this session, and now is, well, P5. And here comes Mirko Bortolotti. We're running the clock on Mirko Bortolotti, who had a quicker than anyone through Sector 1, Sector 2.
He's quick.
He is quick. Let's see what Mirko Bortolotti can do. As he heads towards the timing line, he goes P1, a 49.049. We are going to get into the 48s, I predict, before this 3 minutes that remains in this qualifying session is and are over. Here's Thomas Preining. This is not going to be a record-breaking time.
No, Thomas Preining riding on board. You can see
he was building for this lap.
Yes, absolutely. So this could be the one to watch, couldn't it? He's got space out on the track. So Thomas Preining, he has been very much the benchmark through both the free practice sessions. We look back at Ricardo Feller. Really look at the concentration in his eyes. You cannot afford to drop the ball here at the Norisring, because it's a track that bites. Ricardo Feller in the Audi, looking to improve further, and Ricardo Feller, of course, who won the last race at Zandvoort, so will be carrying success penalty in this afternoon's race. So grid position, especially important for him. He'll be carrying an extra 20 kilos.
Forgive me, Preining, purple, Sector 1, purple, Sector 2. Forgive me interrupting you,
48.
but come on, Thomas Preining. We've
48.
got to get into the 48s here. And he's done it. I'm convinced of it. 48.933. Well done, Thomas Preining. He goes P1. But we are talking about a 10th quicker. It's oh so close. It's what makes the DTM so compelling. Here comes the Emil Fry Racing Jack Aitken. 296 then. And again, personal best through Sector 1. Sector 2, losing a little bit of time relative to those very, very front runners. But Jack Aitken now hugs the arm coat and tries to make the straight even straighter than it is, and unfortunately it's still a 50.434, so still to come. Let me give you a roundup of where we're at, because it's going to change within the next minute and a half. Thomas Preining has set himself up for another lap. It's not this lap that counts, it's the next one from Thomas Preining. It's Preining from Stoltz, from Bortolotti, from Feller, from Auer, from Engel, Heinrich, Engelhardt, Pereira, and Mick Wieshofer is rounding out the top 10 at the moment.
Yeah, so the time running out, a minute and a quarter. There's still some significant names at the wrong end of the timing sheet, none more so than Jack Aitken, who missed both races at Zandvoort due to other driving duties. So he really needed a good score here, and 13th place is not where he wants to be. We're riding with Lucas Stoltz. This could be building up for one last thrust here at a front row. Well, he's in the front row already, but one last attempt at pole position. Never say thrust on there with Dave Richardson alongside you.
So Thomas Preining, I think, is going to be able to get another lap in, and he's going to need to, frankly, because that one, P1 for Thomas Preining with a 48.933. He still remains the only driver in the 48s at the moment. But of course, it is busier out there because you've got a lot of traffic, and you're trying to find clear tarmac, and on such a short track, Thomas Preining is not going for it. As you can see, he's bailed it and he's not going to be able to get another lap in because by the time he's got to the timing line, the checkered flag will be out on this particular part of qualifying for Group A. And therefore, Thomas Preining, unless anyone else, and I don't think, as we look at the timing screen, there's no one going purple. I think Thomas Preining, well done, sir. You have done enough for Group A. But it is only for Group A.
It is. He loves this place, doesn't he? And if the track is getting quicker and quicker, then we would expect an even faster time in the next group of cars. So potentially it could be a pole position or it could be an outside front row, but it will be a front row start if nobody beats that. For those who think, oh, well, that's a little bit unfair, this group will be going second for tomorrow's race, so Group 2 will go first.
Well, the weather prediction is expected that it's going to be even hotter tomorrow than today, and it's pretty roasting today. I mean, of course, we're clearly loved and looked after with an air-conditioned studio complex with ensuite facilities and sofas and such like.
The bucket in the corner of the ensuite,
So it is Thomas Preining from Lucas Stoltz from Mirko Bortolotti, then it was Lucas P4, Ricardo Feller, Lauren Heinrich, Mauro Engel, Christian Engelhardt, Frank Pereira, and Mick Wieshofer, then the top 10, and Thomas Preining brings the Porsche back, and he'll be pretty satisfied with his performance, I would suggest. A tenth and a bit ahead of any other driver. So well done to Thomas Preining. Him very much looking forward to the race to come a little bit later, of course, as indeed we all are. Discussions going on inside the garages, always. Behind every driver, there is a huge team of people that make this happen, of course, and the going on about it, but there is a great interface between the engineers and the drivers as well, and that's oh so important here at the Norisring when you know, your engineer almost acts as a spotter for you, Brian, in terms of finding you some clear space. Let me give you the full classification then from Quali 1 Group A. Thomas Preining, the man of the moment, 48.933 ahead of Lucas Stoltz. Mirko Bortolotti, then it was Lucas P4. What a spread of manufacturers. Ricardo Feller, then Lauren Heinrich and Mauro Engel ahead of Christian Engelhardt, Frank Pereira and Mick Wieshofer. Then it was Luca Engstler, Mattia Drudi, Jack Aitken could do no better than P13 and Alessio Daletta, then P14 as the crowds begin to flock in. Here we see the top three in super slow-mo for you. The number 92 car of Mirko Bortolotti then for SSR Performance. He brought that Lamborghini Huracan home in P3 for qualifying. Lucas Stoltz, something of a dark horse.
Oh. Potentially.
The Mercedes AMG GT3 takes P2 with a time of 49.046, and then it was Thomas Preining taking P1 for Mante EMA, and here is Verena.
And I've got Lucas Stoltz with me starting in P2, at least this group session says you're P2, so hopefully it's going to be amongst the top three. We'll find out in the second group. Obviously, how tough is it out there? It's hot, obviously.
Yeah, it's hot, and qualifying is always tricky at Norisring because obviously the walls are really close. But yeah, I had a lot of fun out there. HRT prepared a really good car, and yeah, really happy with P2 right now, but probably the second group is a little bit faster.
But it's always a strange feeling, right? Being in P2 in the qualifying, but then having to wait for the second outcome?
Yeah, definitely, because also the engineer tells you P2, so you always think, oh, it's P2 outright, but then obviously there's a second group. But yeah, I think it's good handling from ADSC and DTM because two groups are much better because you have less traffic.
All right, thank you, Luca. Back to you.
So confirmation then that, of course, for the drivers, it is something of a waiting game to see who will do what in the second part of qualifying, because that will determine actually where they finish. So there's going to be a lot of observation with regards to this qualifying. Brian, thank you, Verena. You can see how happy Thomas Preining was then as he crossed that timing line. He has done enough, but as you say, he's only done enough for potentially P1 or P2.
He has, and the cars behind will be lining up directly behind him. But he's done as much as he can do. And as we've already said, he gets to do it all again tomorrow.
So let's hear from Thomas Preining right now.
How does it feel for the race later on? I mean, obviously Group 2 still needs to do the qualifying.
Yeah, honestly, I'm super happy. Provisional pole at least, we still have to wait for the other group. It's a great feeling. The lap was really on edge. You feel so much on the limit, especially in the chicane. So I'm just glad I brought it home. thanks to the team, the car was really good, and let's see what we can do later.
Thank you, and back to you.
So, confirmation then from Thomas that it is something of a waiting game, but he has delivered as much as he can deliver during that session. Of course, it's, very quickly those cars are going to be back out again. Well, not those cars, the next cars. Here we can see the Group B order. Sheldon van der Linde ahead of Kelvin van der Linde, Tim Heinemann, Marco Wittmann, Ayhan Guven, David Schumacher, René Rast, Arjun Maini, Clement Schmidt, Thierry Vermeulen. They are the cars joined by Patrick Niederhauser, Yusufa Vega and Dennis Olsen as well. They're going to be out in Group B for round 3. That is the starting order for that qualifying group, and as every driver has suggested, they are expecting this group to be quicker still. Cars are out there on track for the second part of qualifying here at DTM for the Norisring this weekend. And if it's anything like as exciting as the qualifying 1 group or Group A was, then we're in for a great 19 minutes or so. So, Josef Oega, we follow right now, the Mercedes-AMG team, BWT, just bringing the car around, doing something of a sighting lap, and then they'll go out and really build temperature. And then, of course, it will be all down to the times that we can, or they can, I should say, deliver out there on track. You can see the Tim Heinemann car, David Schumacher also out there, so too Arjun Maini and Clement Schmidt and Thierry Vermeulen, Yusufa Vega and Dennis Olsen. Already we're into the final 18.5 minutes of this qualifying, and not a time has been set yet. So David Schumacher for the Mercedes-AMG team Winwood, and David Schumacher, I felt yesterday, Brian, looked pretty potent during some of the free practice sessions. We yet to see the very best of David Schumacher. And Tim Heinemann, who you and I were in conversation with over a cup of tea and custard cream biscuits yesterday, he was the driver that was explaining, Dave, you can use that banking area, that little banked area. You can make something happen there. And sure enough, we'll see during qualifying if he makes that happen. So we will see. We will see. Dennis Olsen, the bespectacled Dennis Olsen, of course, a very long-term Porsche pilot. And Dennis Olsen is certainly someone never to be discounted, Brian. And nice to have you with us on air here to enjoy DTM qualifying, and Thierry Vermeulen bringing the Emil Frey Racing Ferrari 296 GT3 into the pit lane, as most of the drivers do. Go out for a sighting lap, bring them back through the pit lane, and then they get out there for qualifying good and proper.
Yes, we've just seen it all reach a crescendo in Group A, and then it's as you were. We're suddenly going to have probably about 10 minutes of not a lot going on, because the track, as we've said a gazillion times already, is getting faster and faster. There's more rubber being laid down. I would suggest that at the end of this session, we are going to see the provisional pole position time eclipsed, but that remains to be seen. Of course, an awful lot can happen. Any drivers leaving it late in the session, as many as these drivers probably will, then you do risk a red flag or somebody dropping fluid on the track, and that can change things completely. So we are now looking for the next row of this, the first race of the weekend, as we look in at Lauren Heinrich in the Team Bernhard pit.
Yes, now, what was interesting about the last part of qualifying is Arjun Maini's car then is taken back into the garage here. Arjun Maini driving for the Mercedes-AMG team HRT. What was very interesting is early on in the Group A qualifying was drivers like Christine Engelhardt were out there early on putting a banker lap in, and sometimes it pays to do that, whereas at the moment we have one car going around the track at the moment, and there you can see Thomas Preining being interviewed for the focus of the world's media that are on our DTM stars, of course. And the one car that is going round at the moment and now coming into the pit lane is Ayhan Guven, I do believe, as we take a look at the Tim Heinemann car then. And Tim Heinemann for TalkSport WRT. I love the livery on the car, and the livery came about by a special reason, Brian.
It did. They looked at over 200 liveries when they were trying to decide on that car, and eventually I think it was JP Motorsport who came up with a livery that they used. It looks spectacular, and of course Tim Heinemann the driver that has come through sim racing into GT3 racing. Maybe the old route of getting a go-kart or whatever it is, maybe that's a dated view now, because this is the way the kids are doing it nowadays, is getting on the sim and learning how to drive one of these things.
You really did sound like an old man then.
That's a good reason for that.
David Schumacher then, one to keep an eye on during the course of today. David Schumacher then going to be out in this Group B qualifying, and we have absolutely no one on the Norisring track at the moment, with just under 15 minutes of our qualifying session remaining. Now, what this means, Brian, is that all of a sudden, this, let me remind you, short track is going to become very busy. Thierry Vermeulen, the Ferrari 296 GT3 for Emil Frey Racing then, and delighted that Emil Frey are in the DTM with Thierry Vermeulen. And, you know, the 296 GT3 car, of course, taking its first GT3 victory in Germany. You can see those straps of Marco Wittmann. Now, this is a man who has got the support of thousands of people around here. He lives in Fürth, just down the road. And I was saying yesterday, and I still feel I'm talking some sense, that, you know, the weight of responsibility that Marco Wittmann might feel by virtue of the fact that he needs to go out there and perform for those thousands and thousands of his fans kind of ramps up the pressure a bit on him, because he wants to do well in any event. But of course, having all those people shouting and cheering for you as well, it can drive you on, but it can also be something of a hindrance in terms of responsibility, because you feel that you've got to perform for them.
Yeah, it's very much about managing the pressure, isn't it? Because
pressure, that was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, but he's done it a few times. This is his 10th time here at the Norisring, so he's won here before. He says that winning here meant more to him than his 2 DTM titles. That is how prestigious this race is. Let's have some team radio from Olsen.
Please also let us know about fuel alarm. If you see the fuel alarm and we don't have radio, this means you can do another push afterwards, and then we have to box. So finish the lap, one more push, and then very slow in.
Oh, that's interesting. So even when the fuel alarm comes on, there is still enough fuel in there for him to do another push lap. I love this team radio, because you get to learn so much, don't you? That was talking to Dennis Olsen there. Dennis Olsen, who is a driver that I've had the privilege of talking about for more years than I care to remember, and probably Dennis would agree with that, but he is a talent. There's no question about it. A very, very good driver indeed. And here comes the local star then, Mega Marco Wittmann. Driving for the Project One team with that BMW M4 GT3, and Project One, a super team, and Mega Marco, a super driver. As you were saying, Brian, the home wins, if you like, here at the Norisring meant more to him than the championships. That tells you just how important it is to him. And we have now, at last, got some cars out there on track. Thank you, drivers. Interestingly, where do you think we sit with those drivers that have got more experience of the Norisring than some of the drivers that have got less experience of the Norisring? Because it is such a unique place.
Yeah, you've got to know your way around here, and it's been very interesting because the first 2 rounds of the season, Oschersleben and Zandvoort, very much favoured the drivers who have come through GT Masters. GT Masters have run regularly at Oschersleben and Zandvoort, but not at the Norisring, and DTM hasn't run at Oschersleben or Zandvoort up until this year for many, many years. But the Norisring, well, the drivers that have been in DTM for a while, like Marco Wittmann, this is now playing to their strengths, and they're the drivers that were very much leading the way in free practice yesterday. Marco Wittmann, well, he has done many, many laps around here. He's full of confidence because, of course, he's just won the Spa 24-hour race as well. He is the man to watch here, very much so here at the Norisring this weekend.
Well, we will bring you the next 11 minutes, which are going to be packed with times tumbling down, I would suggest. And it's going to go very, very quickly. We've got Sheldon van der Linde, Kelvin van der Linde, Tim Heinemann, Marco Wittmann, Ayhan Kuben, David Schumacher, and this man, René Rast. Driving for Schumann Motorsport, René Rast, the sort of racing driver that you could give him a sack barrow or a wheelbarrow out there in the Norisring and he'd still potentially win the race. He is talent personified when it comes to motor racing. Super guy, and both René and I laugh when we're having a conversation that I can go back many, many years to his first championship win in cars, which was more years than he or I cared to talk about, but it was at the Hockenheim, and I was there and the voice of René's first championship win, and, well, still talking about him today, and he just seems to get better and better and better. Don't rule him out of this.
No, with 3 championships under his belt, he wants to make it 4. He missed Zandvoort. He was doing Formula E, so he missed the 2 races there. That's put him on his back foot. He needs to score consistently, as indeed does Jack Aitken, for the rest of this season to make up for the missed round.
So, Brian, Group B qualifying right now. The best time that came from Thomas Preining in Group A was into the 48s.
48.8.
The only driver in the 48s.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was very fast.
But everyone's saying that the quick times are going to come in this part of qualifying, because basically they've had the benefit of the DTM rubber being laid down from Group A, but as you said, this all gets reversed tomorrow when Group B will be the first group out, so everything is fair. As Dennis Olsen gives us our first time, but it's not one worth mentioning. Well, I say that's darn rude of me.
Could do it.
Yes, 52.033, and to give you some idea of, or justification for my bold statement there, Tim Heinemann has just taken 1.5 seconds out of it, and he's gone with a 50.358, which is closer to where we expect it to be, but we are expecting times in the 48s. And here comes Clemens Schmidt then. Tim Heinemann then is doing a purple sector as well. You can see that from the color blocks alongside the graphics. And if they're colored purple, it means they're quicker than anybody else. If they're colored green, it's personal best. And Tim Heinemann's on something of a mission here, because he's taken 1.5 tenths out of his previous best time. So Tim Heinemann is going to cross the line. Here he comes right now. Let's see what he can deliver. It's going to be a sub 50 time, I predict. And how often do my predictions go wrong? right now, because for a reason, sector 3 didn't work for him. So come on, Tim. Here comes René Rast, and we continue to watch Heinemann then as he lines it up, and we'll go again. And René Rast right now goes P1 with our first. That's a 49.739 from René.
Yeah, drivers weaving, still trying to get heat into the tyres. The track temperature has risen by 0.5 degree since this session started, so it is warming up. Tyre warmers are not allowed, so I think it's very much building the pace, building, getting heat into the tyres. Clemens Schmidt now into the 49s as well, goes at P2. But I think we're going to see the times, just the drivers just building the heat, and maybe 3rd, 4th lap out, getting the time they want. Sheldon van der Linde now to the top, a 49.642, still some 7/10 off the fastest time in Group 1.
Yes, we are expecting times into the 48s. Now, there was only one driver that did it in Group A. That was Thomas Preining. Here comes René Rast. Now, Sector 1 was okay. Sector 2 was not okay. Don't expect this time to necessarily be an improvement from René Rast, and indeed it isn't. Sheldon van der Linde, 49.642 is the top time at the moment, ahead of Tim Heinemann. And here is Sheldon van der Linde improving further. You can see as we pick his car up right now, driving with the number 1, of course, Sheldon van der Linde, purple Sector 1, purple Sector 2. Shortcuts as much as you can by taking that kink out of the start-finish straight, and he goes to the timing beam now and lost time in the 3rd sector.
Interesting. I wonder if there's an issue in Sector 3. There could be some fluid or some dirt down, because several drivers are now losing time in that Sector 3. So
it's just happened to Tim Heinemann, exactly the same. David Schumacher has gone up to P9. Ayanchang Guven has just gone 2nd fastest, Brian, and all of a sudden, we have many more drivers in the 49s. Ayanchang Guven also improving. Now, let's see what he does through this final sector, because it seems to be the final sector that's been catching some drivers out. Well, when it comes to Ayanchang Guven,
wow, 48s.
Didn't catch him out quite as much, as he goes into the 48s with a 48.967. Here's Sheldon van der Linde then, personal best Sector 1 and Sector 2. Tim Heinemann is duplicating that as well, and Sheldon van der Linde now is P3, René Rast is P2, Kelvin van der Linde is P4. So Ayanchang Guven, who's improving still further, Brian, because his Sector 1 time, as we watch Tim Heinemann, his Sector 1 time is purple. Is the middle sector going to be the same for Ayanchang Guven? Yes, it is. So the number 24 car then going very well here as Kelvin van der Linde now goes to the top with a 48.964. Here comes Ian Chan Guven. Is he going to unseat Kelvin van der Linde from that provisional P1 position? Well, actually, no, he didn't.
No, not quite there. Again, losing time in Sector 3. So a lot of the drivers really struggling in that final sector. The Porsche, once again, looking like very much a car to beat. Of course, with the rear engine, apparently the balance of that car allows the drivers to get heat into the tyres quicker than some of the other configurations. So maybe getting the heat into the tyres early is what is allowing the Porsches to get towards the top of the timing screens. But the drivers that are just putting in lap after lap are building the heat, not taking too much out of the rubber early on, and maybe there towards the end of the session. It's still Kelvin van der Linde, though, in the Audi of 48.964. That's just 3 thousandths ahead of Ian Chan Guven in the Porsche.
And we have only 4.5 minutes of this qualifying session remaining. Ian Chan Guven then P1.
Wow.
Here comes Sheldon van der Linde now. A personal best through Sector 1, but quicker than anyone through Sector 2. Sheldon van der Linde then currently P3. Is it going to be an improvement? Yes, it is. It's P2 for Sheldon van der Linde. So there he is in the BMW then. Ian Chan Guven from Sheldon van der Linde, and there is a very interested driver sitting on the pit perch watching at what everything is going on here, because as we've split the qualifying into 2 groups, there's some very interested parties, Brian.
Yes, and Thomas Breining, well, all that needs to be decided now is he going to start on the inside or is he going to start on the outside for the race this afternoon? A 48.8 is what they're aiming for. And at the moment, Ian Chan Guven looking very dialed in. Not so quick in Sector 1 in that, but 48.791. He's still taking the time out. So, yes, 791, that is quicker than Thomas Breining's time, isn't it? So, Ian Chan Guven, if things stay as they are, will be on pole position. Now, Thomas Breining is going to be outside front row, whatever happens.
Sheldon van der Linde, 48.775 now. So the time's continuing to come down. Here comes Tim Heinemann. Where's Mega Marco in all of this? Mega Marco is P8. He won't be happy with that. René Rast, we're running the graphics on as we continue to watch the Tim Heinemann car. René Rast is P4 at the moment. Here is René. And there is Sheldon van der Linde, who is our current P1 driver. Now, this lap is not going to be one that will trouble his previous time of 48.775. Of that, I can guarantee. There's not much in life I get right, but this I have. And sure enough, it's a 49.626, Brian. But he will go again. There's no question about that. 2.5 minutes remaining. Tim Heinemann also lining it up and winding it up, ready for another go, as Kelvin van der Linde's gone personal best in Sector 1 and Sector 2. So Kelvin van der Linde and, of course, René Rast were stablemates for many, many years. And René Rast then crosses the line, and so too does Kelvin van der Linde. And Kelvin, the young whippersnapper, taking it to the old man at the moment, René, who is P4, and he won't like me for saying that, but here's Tim Heinemann. Tim Heinemann is currently 6th fastest, just ahead of the local superstar Marco Wittmann. And Tim Heinemann losing a little bit of time in that middle sector. It's personal best through Sector 1, and he's been pretty quick, to be fair. And Tim Heinemann at the moment is P6, and I don't think that's going to be an improvement. Sure enough, it isn't. So, van der Linde, Sheldon, from Ian Chan Guven, from Kelvin van der Linde. Hello, Thomas.
Yeah.
What are you saying here?
Well, he's saying, well, it's going to be an outside front row start. We can confirm now that the drivers that you are looking at are racing and qualifying for the inside of race 1, because the time that Sheldon van der Linde has set is quicker than Thomas Breining's time, as we thought might be the case. So all the drivers in that group will line up behind him. Thomas Breining, whatever happens, will be starting from the outside front row in this afternoon's race. Whoever is quickest in this session will be starting from pole.
Thank you. And at the moment, that is this man, Sheldon van der Linde, with a 48.775. And Ovega here is improving. Now, where is he in the lineup at the moment? It's P9 as he pummels the Mercedes against the concrete and heads down towards the timing line. And is this going to be an improvement? Indeed it is. P5 now, just ahead of Dennis Olsen. So the time's continuing, and you know, we were talking about this yesterday, Brian. Even every single lap that a driver is just laying a little bit more rubber down on the track, as you said, it's a half a degree increase in terms of track temperature. All of that is making a difference.
It's another half a degree, actually. We're at 27.1 now, so the temperature is rising quickly at the track, which means it's getting faster. But we are into the last 15 seconds. Any driver that is on a lap when the checkered flag comes out is able to continue, and that lap will count. Dennis Olsen, well, he was quickest of anybody in sector 2, but nothing spectacular in sectors 1 and 3, so he doesn't improve.
I think we are where we are because there are no... Yes, there is a purple sector. It's come from Kelvin van der Linde, but I think his sector 1 will have let him down a bit. Let's see. Yeah. Brian's on it right now. He's got the... You've never seen a man with 6 laptops all open on different elements of the timing screen here to make sure that we bring you the most accurate information possible. Sheldon van der Linde from Ayhancan Guven and Kelvin van der Linde ahead of René Rast, and then it's Vega and Olsen, and Tim Heinemann is not improving, and I think he's going to stay P7, Brian, which will be on the inside line of our grid, which of course has been determined by splitting qualifying into 2 groups. Sheer weight of numbers that has meant that, which does guarantee that when it comes to race time this afternoon, hold on to everything because it's going to be very, very exciting indeed. Sheldon van der Linde quickest then with a 48.775 ahead of Ayhancan Guven, doing a very good job there, and Kelvin van der Linde is P3. So, well done, Sheldon.
Yes.
There's lots of happiness around, and why would there not be?
So, Kelvin van der Linde's P3 means he will start on the 3rd row. Let's hear some team radio from Sheldon van der Linde.
So, mate, how are we on fucking pole in Norisring? Tell me that.
Well, apologies for the colourful language, but you can understand the emotions being very, very happy indeed. On there to be Wade, which... both Brian and I have to go through that before our track run, you know, when it comes a little bit later on today. A slightly different figure on the scales from Sheldon than from me, if that you can guarantee. And Sheldon will be very, very happy with this performance there and the top 3. And someone that will be a tad disappointed, but it'll all change tomorrow, Thomas, because you will be the 2nd group of cars out for qualifying. And in fairness, everything being run very fairly, Brian, from that regard. And of course, the temperatures tomorrow expected to be even a tad higher than today's temperatures. Where are we in terms of air temperature, meteorologist man?
25.7, so rising rapidly. We're expecting the mid to high 30s tomorrow, so put on your shorts. It's going to be a hot one.
Yes, so the hands device and the crash helmet of Sheldon van der Linde coming out off, and as you can see, lots and lots of people making their way into the Norisring ahead of the racing to come. And here is confirmation of the result from qualifying, and this is the provisional starting order for race 1. It will be P1 Sheldon van der Linde, P2 for Thomas Breining, Ayhancan Guven, then Lucas Stoltz, Kelvin van der Linde, Mirko Bortolotti, then it will be René Rast and Lucas Au. That's going to be an interesting one. Josef Hoega and Ricardo Feller rounding out the top 10. And the first 5 rows, therefore, of our starting grid for race 1 to come this afternoon. Then it will be Dennis Olsen and Lauren Heinrich ahead of Tim Heinemann and Maro Engel, Arjun Maini and Christian Engelhardt. Then Marco Wittmann, Mega Marco, with overtaking to do ahead of Frank Pereira, David Schumacher and Mick Wieshofer. And then we move to the next final few rows for our race to come a little bit later this afternoon, which will include Clement Schmidt and Luca Engsler, Patrick Niederhauser and Mattia Drudi, Thierry Vermeulen, Jack Aiken, and Alessio Deletta goes from P27 on the grid. P1 on the grid as always, Verena.
And I'm here with Ayhancan Guven, and congratulations, P2 in this group, but all in all, you're starting in P3 in the race. So I guess looks like a podium for the race. You going to do that?
Yeah, hopefully. I'm looking for my first podium in DTM, so hopefully it's today.
And how tough is it out there? It's hot, it's a very short racetrack, it's very challenging.
Yeah, it's really short and you don't have so much time. Yeah, it's straight, but you have so much heavy braking. It's also really physical. But yeah, I think we have a good race car. And also, I think it's good to be in the 2nd row in P3, so I'm super happy for it. And yeah, we will see. We will send from there.
And here, all in all, the whole atmosphere, how is that? How are you enjoying that?
Yeah, it's really special, especially turn one. First time I go out in qualifying, I see the full grandstand. It's really a good feeling. You can feel the fans are really close to you. So for sure, this is why we do the sport. Without fans, it's no meaning. So I really enjoy it.
All right, thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, and well done indeed. And here we can see super slow-mos of the cars then. Including Sheldon van der Linde, who, of course, with a 48.775, and just wait and look for the emotions. There it is. It was a little bit understated, if I'm honest with you. I was expecting a little bit more celebration than that, Brian, but it wasn't there.
That's because there's a long afternoon to come in the race, an
maybe.
hour of racing. Sheldon van der Linde looking very ecstatic there. Understandably, his championship challenge is very much back on track after a tough start at Oschersleben. He is desperate to defend at that, successfully defend at that title. And this is exactly what he needed on this twisty and tight circuit.
There you can see already. Here is the points adjusted, of course, after qualifying. Thomas Preining, 57 points now, 6 points ahead of Frank Pereira. Then it's Ricardo Feller and Maro Engel. Then it's Tim Heinemann, Mirko Bortolotti, Christine Engelhardt, Sheldon van der Linde, Dennis Olsen and Marco Wittmann. Mega Marco then rounding out the top 10 in terms of Drivers' Championship points at the moment. He's some 32 behind our points leader, Thomas Preining. And he, as we have seen confirmed from our second group of qualifying, that he will be going from P2. So those the Drivers' Championship points. This is Verena down in the pit lane.
And here, the setter, congratulations. Mainly setters, so how are you going to turn it into a victory? Obviously here at the Norisring it's going to be so tough.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say it's probably one of the most special poles I've had in DTM, because in the last 4 to 5 years I've never really been on it here. Somehow it's always been qualifying at the back of the grid, and then the race is always tricky. So yeah, I needed to prove to myself that I can do it here in Norisring as well. So when the team told me I'm on pole, I couldn't believe it, to be honest. The lap was amazing. I had a nice slipstream from Marco as well, which obviously helped the top speed. So generally very happy with that, and I think everything's open for the race, obviously.
Absolutely. And what would you say? You just mentioned it's a very tricky racetrack. What makes it so especially tricky?
I mean, you've only got 4 corners, so it should be quite easy, but it's actually a lot more difficult because there's so many details that go into a lap here, especially the braking. It's so easy to overshoot turn 1, especially when you're behind another car. You know that if you overshoot, you're probably going to hit him. In this case, Marco was in front of me. Don't want to take another BMW out, so yeah, just super happy. Honestly, one of the best poles I've had in DTM.
All right, well, best of luck for the race later on, Sheldon. Thank you so much. And now here are the highlights. Do enjoy, and we'll see you later for a very spectacular race. Bye-bye.
Auf der Strecke war perfekt und man weiß ja auch, du kannst kaum überholen. Ja, also ich hoffe auf ein gutes Rennen für euch jetzt. Wie bitte Stopper, da muss ich einladen. Man kann doch auf den Losen super überholen. Erste Kurve, letzte Kurve, viele Spitzkehren. Also ich sag mal so, es gibt die schlimmere Strecken, oder? Ja, ich weiß es nicht. Wenn du hier blockierst, ist es eigentlich ganz tricky vorbeizufahren normalerweise, aber für mich ist es gut. Ich stehe auf voll und ich würde ja nicht überholen. Also kann sein, du wirst halt jemand vorbeifahren könnte vor der Wegwand. Chefmann, der Unterpause ist heute für das Rennen und dann würde ich sagen, machen wir hier unten eine ganz kurze Pause und gleich geht hier weiter mit dem Zeittraining im Prototype Cup Germany. Also viel Spaß damit gleich.